The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
we are now about to witness the truth.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am, of course, your host, Benjamin Dixon. It is Thursday, December 15, 2016, and thank you so much for joining us. We're starting late, so let me skip all of the formalities. But one formality I will never skip is that, and that's thanking my patrons. Patrons, you rock. And tomorrow's bonus show is going to be patrons only. I did last week give everybody a chance to get a sample of the bonus show and how much fun we kind of have. It's a little more lively than the regular show, only because I feel more comfortable not speaking to a random audience, but to people who support me. So it's a little, I kind of let my hair down. If I had hair, that would be the saying. So anyway, if you want to get the bonus show that we do occasionally throughout the week, we're down to doing it occasionally now. I'll admit that. But we always do the Friday bonus show. If you want to get access to the Friday bonus show, go to patreon.com. You know where to go. You know what to do. Go ahead and do it. All right, let's jump into the news. So there's no big surprise here. But Dylann Roof has been found guilty on 33 counts, federal counts, for the murders of 9 people, 9 churchgoers in the Mother Emanuel AME Church. And I say it's no big surprise only because, he confessed. We knew this was, we knew that he was going to be found guilty. The only question that remains is whether or not he will be sentenced to death. And that does present a quagmire for me because I am generally against the death penalty in all cases. So I'm imagining, for me to be consistent, that I also need to be against the death penalty in the case of Dylann Roof, but we'll discuss that later. According to the Washington Post, Roof, in his confession, said that he, quote unquote, had to do it because he believed nobody was putting a stop to what he read online about black on white crime. He believed that it was not too late to take the country back from blacks. Dylann Roof had a list of churches that were potential targets, and he ultimately landed on Mother Emanuel AME Church, where he killed 9 parishioners at the end of their Bible study. I did not know this until this week, that he began shooting at the end as they were given the benediction. And I can imagine the benediction being something to the effect, either now unto him who's able to keep you from falling is a pretty standard benediction that we do in the black church. Or they say, may the Lord watch between you and me while we're absent one from another. Whatever they say, it's always a brief and solemn moment. And that's the moment that Dylann Roof decided that he would carry out his racist, white supremacist massacre. So he's been found guilty on all counts. The question is whether or not he's going to be facing the death penalty. And again, it does present a problem because, as one of the witnesses said, there's only one place for people like this, and that's in, the pits of hell, if you believe in hell. Basically saying he has no place to exist in this world anymore. And that's a pretty, coming from the family's victims, the victims' families. I can understand that passion. I can understand that anger. I can understand that angst. And even if you're not a part of the family, I can understand how this particular case will throw you into kind of a quagmire if you're against the death penalty. I'm still struggling with it. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like in almost all cases, I've opted on the side of being opposed to the death penalty. And I imagine that at the end of the day, when I get through, arguing with myself, which I do on a regular basis, once I get through arguing with myself, I'm going to probably not want this kid to get the death penalty, only because I like to be consistent, or I will change my mind, right? So I don't have to be against the death penalty. I can change my mind, but once I change my mind, I have to be consistent, and that's just that's just something for me. It's like I have to be consistent, even if I change my mind. If this is my new thought, if this is my new position, then this is what I'm going to hold to, right? And I don't want to conveniently switch back and forth when the situation suits me. So anyone who holds a principled line like that, particularly with the death penalty, situations like this really puts you in a bind. But I'm pretty sure ultimately the greater humanity in me is going to be consistent with my progressive ideology that I'm against the death penalty. But seeing as I am, and this is let me completely separate what I'm going to say here from the intellectual and the emotional conversation that we just had. Seeing that I'm kind of hawkish on foreign policy, particularly drone usage. I would always use drones before I would use boots on the ground. I say we drop Dylann Roof off in some country and tell him to run for his life and give him a chance to survive. If he makes it, he makes it. If he gets droned, he gets droned. Something, or we just put him in jail and let him sit there. What is he, 27? So he's got a very long time to sit in prison and realize and deal with what he did. But he's been found guilty. Again, there's no surprise on the conviction. I would be surprised if he was a police officer that got convicted, but he's not a police officer and he confessed. So we'll have to stay tuned. I don't think they've sentenced yet, so we'll keep an eye out on the actual sentencing. You could join the conversation tonight. 857-600-0518 is the number to join in. A lot of other things happening in the news. I definitely want to get your input. Like, what do you think about the death penalty? What do you think about the death penalty in cases like this, where it was an act of terror? It was an act of it was a racially motivated hate crime. It was a crime. I mean, he killed elderly people along with young people. He killed a father of two. He killed, a grandmother. He killed people in their 80s. He shot them 11 times. And not to try to paint this picture of how horrible he is, because I don't think that picture has to be drawn, but it's hard to be a progressive. It's hard to be consistently progressive, because it really goes against your human nature, which is one of the reasons I tend to want to be more progressive, because it's a constant challenge to what I naturally want to do. I mean, I naturally probably would want to line this dude up and do it myself, because I'm not necessarily a good person deep down, not all the time. I'll admit to that. But, part of this progressive ideology is the value of the value of the state not being able to use its power to take the life of citizens. I want to know what you think before I move too quickly from the story. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and/or question?
Hey, man, it's Bryce. What's going on?
Hey, what's happening, man?
When it comes to the death penalty, I'm 50-50. If you did something real egregious like Dylann Roof, you got to go. Goodbye. I'm sorry. You got to go. Dylann Roof, he's got to go.
Yeah.
They better do it. He's got to go. If you didn't do nothing too egregious, then, jail time,
Yeah.
life without parole, or, some type of jail time.
Yeah.
Of course. If you if you harm children in any way, death penalty. If you harm your family members, death penalty. You gotta go.
Yeah.
Especially children. But
yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you. Hang on, I don't mean to cut you off, but children, yeah. See, it's easier for me to be all philosophical. Oh, let's be lean toward, but you mess with children. I probably would drop all the facade and say, F it, burn them at the stake. Like, I get kind of ruthless because I kind of, that's a sensitive spot for most human beings. Like, I wish Adam Lanza didn't kill himself so I could, anyway. Go ahead, Bryce, finish up
Yeah,
what you're thinking.
I know. But that's how I feel. Like, if you did 2002 out of control, you shouldn't get the death penalty. Of course, you should take jail time or whatever like that. But if you did something real bad, you gotta go because it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
you
man.
know, in terms of to be here, it doesn't. There's no purpose. Now, obviously, America has used the death penalty the wrong way.
Yeah,
and
that's the
sometimes they got it
problem.
right.
Yeah.
So that's just how it kind of goes. It's like a catch-22.
Yeah, it is. And that's the problem. That's the hard part. Thanks for the call. I want to get some other people in on the conversation. 857-600-0518. That's the hard part, right? So I just contradicted myself. And it's not an easy thing. I contradicted myself because I'm pretty sure I would be the first in line championing for us to execute somebody who harmed children, right? But because the state has been so inaccurate and they have executed so many innocent people, you can't be for one and then against the other, right? I mean, emotionally you can, but I just, the inconsistency still kind of messes with my head, to be honest with you. It messes with my head. This is one of the many places I am, one of the few places, one of the two places. There are two places that I'm conflicted with my progressive ideology, and that is with the death penalty, depending on the case, and war, depending on the case. Because, as I believe it was, I don't know if it's actually a theologian who said this, but I heard someone say that Thomas Aquinas actually said some people just need to be killed. And, I mean, we can't be peace at any cost. Not all the time. Sometimes peace is going to cost. But that's just my twisted way of thinking. Caller, you're live on the air. What do you think about it? Do you think the death penalty is okay in some cases, particularly in this case with Dylann Roof? What do you think?
Hi, Ben. This is Vita from San Leandro.
Oh,
How are you?
I know I can count on Vita keeping it 100. What do you think, Vita?
You know what? Dylann Roof needs to be put to death because it's a clear case, and it amazes me. I'm looking at the chat room, and they're speaking about state-sanctioned death and killing people. I said, wow, that's amazing. We've had plenty of people, police officers killing unarmed black males, and from the time we landed on this shore, there's been killing, state-sanctioned murders without no trial, no nothing, just because I looked at you. It's amazing, and it kind of to me reflects back to the Sanity show where that Seattle Watch, wherever the lady was from, how she rationalized her reasoning, for her statements and stuff. And she just kept digging a deeper hole, and it's just rationalizing.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's only good for some people, but it's been so many people, especially people of color, always get the needle pretty fast,
Yeah.
So it's amazing to me. And then they want to be allies, but they don't. Then what got me when that lady said that she had to hear a deer story in order for her to understand what's going on about Black lives, people getting killed, the police killing people unarmed. Wow. And you're in the Democratic Party, you're supposed to be progressive. You don't know history. You don't see things around you. What are you looking at? There's so much information out there. You don't have no knowledge of thinking this black male is more subject to be pursued, And it's just like, I can't, Brandon hit it on the nail. On the last show, he just cleaned it all up just with like two sentences.
Yeah.
He just cleaned it up. I mean, just perfectly, because it's you can't say that you're an ally if you don't even think that way. You're okay, but then you want to rationalize everything. When someone looks different than you, what you look like, or from a different background or status or something.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to stomach some of that.
Okay.
I think that foundation that Deer's building on, his house is going to cost him a lot of money. He's going to have a lot of maintenance if he keeps believing in that Democratic Party, because they run from the top to the bottom.
Vita, thanks so much for the call. I want to at least get one more person in on this before I switch stories. 857-600-0518. What do you think? So far, I have two callers who I know are progressive as hell. I know them well. They're progressive as hell. They say that Dylann Roof should get the death penalty. I still, I'm still struggling with it because the death penalty has been so disproportionately used on African Americans and wrongfully so. And not just African Americans, but just the people who have been exonerated posthumously. Like, they're dead, and now they're exonerated. So it's like the state gets it wrong so many times that I'm afraid they're going to keep getting it wrong. I'm afraid that there are going to be more people who are executed unjustly. Hey, that's just my take. But so two of the callers so far think that it's okay that we should go ahead and execute Dylann Roof. Let's see what the next caller has to say. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Oh, yes, my name's William, and I just wanted to make a comment in regards to the death penalty.
Yeah, what do you think?
Yes. Well, I completely understand where you're coming from and why you're conflicted, but I just have one thing that pretty much trumps, in my opinion, everything. Unfortunately, justice isn't equal for all, and it's not always distributed evenly.
Yeah. Sure.
The death penalty, among other penalties, have been dealt out unjustifiably in the past, and unfortunately they'll be dealt out unjustifiably in the future.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, if we can't do it evenly, I don't think it's ever going to be done 100%. All of this, not all of it, but it's subjective a lot of times when you're judging somebody.
Yeah.
So to have that kind of power, to be able to cast that upon somebody, I just don't think we should have that kind of power.
Yeah.
Especially knowing ahead of time that it's never going to be 100% down the line even.
Yeah.
That's a mighty thing to have possession of.
You're right. That's such a huge responsibility and such a huge power. Thanks for the call, man. So, with my vote, I guess I'm undecided. That last caller was pretty decided. And then we had two callers who are still, in this case, absolutely for it. It's a tough question, so I don't expect us to be able to answer it tonight. Thanks so much for the calls, everyone. All right, let's shift gears here. I'm just getting used to a new layout here. Where's my mouse? There's my mouse. All right, let's shift gears and talk about Russia. I want to start with two clips. The clips I'm going to start with, the first one is from John Kerry. The second one is going to be from Julian Assange, who was on Sean Hannity's radio show today. And it's fascinating to see that Sean Hannity aligned now with someone who he declared was waging war against America. But of course, it meets his political ends and his political desires. But here are the clips. The first clip is of John Kerry, who I think all in all handled this question exactly how reporters should be handling this, right? Like, I'm going to let him speak for himself, but unnamed sources, I don't care if they are U.S. officials, unnamed sources are never enough. When the stakes are this high, then it's not enough. Like, if you believe in what you're saying, and this is such a critical situation, put your name on it. And if you're not authorized to do so, then I don't know what to tell you. But John Kerry, I think he handled this question pretty good for John Kerry. Let's listen in.
Mr. Secretary, do you have any response to reports that Putin himself was directly involved in election-related attacks? Do you think the administration should have come out before the election more boldly with hard intelligence about these attacks?
Well, look, I am not going to start making comments at this point. I haven't commented on this publicly because of the job I do. But let me say today that I'm not going to comment on anonymous reports from intelligence officials that are not identified, that have quotes around the concept of intelligence officials. I just am not going to comment on that. But let me comment very specifically on your sort of question about earlier. Folks, we sat in the Situation Room, I remember, in the White House with the President of the United States, and the President made the decision based on the input that was carefully vetted by the intelligence community and presented to everybody, that he did have an obligation to go out to the country and give a warning. And he did so. Back in October, the President authorized the Director of National Intelligence to, and the Department of Homeland Security together, to make a very clear statement to this nation, to our nation. And they said unequivocally that they assessed with high confidence, that's what we said in October, with high confidence that the Russian government directed compromises of emails from U.S. institutions, including political organizations, and that these thefts and disclosures were intended to interfere with our election process.
Okay, I let that much play because, one, he's handling this exactly like I would. Like I'm trying to as a commentator. I won't even say journalist. As a commentator, right? One, why would we run around the country with unnamed intelligence quote-unquote officials? I mean, he even used the air quotes, which is funny as hell, John Kerry. But why would you run around commenting on that as if it's concrete evidence? That's irresponsible. That is bereft of any journalistic integrity. And even if you just consider yourself to be a commentator, that is below the quality of journalism and commentating that we need and deserve from people who claim to be progressive. Now, maybe the problem is they're not progressive in the first place, but we'll hash out ideologies later. Right now, just have some integrity enough with your craft that you are not willing to fan the flames of a potentially volatile situation just because it fits your political narrative using unnamed sources. Unverifiable information. Like nobody in the media has seen any of this information. They're getting it from unnamed sources, which means they haven't seen the information themselves. And yet they run around the country as though they've got ironclad proof that Vladimir Putin was sitting behind a damn computer trying to hack America. Now, on the flip side, he did bring to the table the comment that, the White House didn't wait. They actually mentioned this back in October. They have an assessment. They feel like Russia was involved. Okay, if Russia was involved and we have verifiable evidence, the next question is, or not the next question, the next statement is, let's do something about it, right? But never take that progression of thought based on anonymous sources that could be somebody who just woke up that morning and say, I want to get an interview today. I mean, we have no way of knowing who these people are, what their motivations are, or if they're even going to stand behind their information. All right, so anyway, the second clip is a clip of Julian Assange on Sean Hannity. And it's interesting for so many reasons, because just a few years ago, Sean Hannity would have loved to see Julian Assange get hit with a drone strike. But listen into what they had to say.
Julian joins us now on our Newsmaker line. Julian, welcome back to the program. Thank you for being with us.
G'day, Sean.
I know you follow the news closely. I know you see the narrative. Now, there is a big brouhaha in the United States. The same media, by the way, that WikiLeaks exposed as colluding with Hillary Clinton's campaign, with near hysteria, getting up to the president and John Podesta with Hillary's campaign, claiming over and over and over again that it's clear, the CIA says so, even though there's no new evidence whatsoever that we didn't have prior to the election, and that the FBI contradicts, and James Clapper, the National Director of Intelligence, contradicts, that in fact the Russians tried to influence and the elections, and this hacked information came from them, and you're saying that is outright false. That's a falsehood.
Our source is not the Russian government.
So in other words, let me be clear. Russia did not give you the Podesta documents or anything from the DNC.
That's correct.
Can you confirm whether or not you have information involving hacked info from the RNC?
We received about 3 pages of information to do with the RNC and Trump, but it was already public somewhere else.
Okay, so in other words, there was nothing significant. There was nothing comparable to what happened. So what Reince Priebus said on NBC to Chuck Todd this weekend was true, and NBC had it wrong.
Well, as far as we're aware of.
As far as
we are aware of. Okay. That's enough of that clip. So Julian Assange, this just happened today, was able to get hold of a cell phone. Pretty good connection. I wonder if that was actually Skype. But anyway, he's speaking to Sean Hannity, and he says that this information, he could verify that this information did not come from the Russian government. I have to unpack that, right? Like, let's think this all the way through. Shout out to Max, who helped me think this through. One, why would the Russian government divulge that they are the source to WikiLeaks? That just doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense for them to get an email that says, whatever, Kremlin dot, what is the .com for Russia? .ru? I don't know. Oh, I guess good, right? So Kremlin.ru, Vlad at Kremlin.ru. You're not going to get an email with a verifiable source connecting it to Russia. So he's saying, and he covered it. I give Assange this much. He covered his butt. And he said, as far as they are aware, right, it did not come from the Russian government. He said it much more assertively and affirmatively earlier, but then at the end of the clip, you see he kind of backed down and said, as far as they know, it's not from the Russian government. This doesn't mean that it is from the Russian government. I'm just saying that, we need some ironclad proof. I'm tired of the speculations on the left. I'm tired of the speculations on the right. Like, if there's evidence, bring it out, put it out. It's time to put it on the table. If the evidence is that concrete, you sure as hell put it on the table before January 20th. Put it on the table before the electors vote. I'm not really one of this that wants the Electoral College to usurp Donald Trump, because I think that's almost like an irreversible trend. That's an irreversible thing that I don't think that we can come back from. However, if we have ironclad evidence that Russia and Vladimir Putin was sitting behind his computer, hacking away at America in favor of Donald Trump, that's something that we should be privy to sooner rather than later. And my thing is this, I hate to say, if you don't show us, you don't have it, but it's like, show us the screenshots or you're lying. Show us the evidence, get someone else to verify this evidence. I mean, we're talking about, at this point, we're not talking about protecting the names of the innocent, because the names of the innocent were put out in the trove of emails that were dumped. So who are you trying to protect? Oh, it's top secret? Well, unclassify it. If it's that important and it's that accurate and that it's that condemning, declassify it and give it to the American people so that we can see this ironclad evidence. And I guarantee, the reason I say that is because this type of information, this, trying to trace back a hack, this is something that could be verified by the tech community probably overnight, not even overnight, in a matter of moments. So you have conflicting stories. So, of course, you're going to have conflicting stories. I think each of these stories have a little bit of merit to add to the table, right, to the conversation. There's one last piece of this, and the last piece of this is the White House. Now, I have a deeply rooted problem with unnamed sources spreading information like this, because they have no accountability. They have no skin in the game. They could just start a fire and run away. highly irresponsible for journalists to run with that kind of crap. But the White House has actually now put their stamp on the story, which to me takes it up a notch, because now we're saying that this is an accusation coming from the Obama administration. That's totally different than an accusation coming from two random unknown sources. All right, so, and I think this was according to Washington Post, today the Obama administration directly accused Vladimir Putin of orchestrating the hacking of Democratic officials during the 2016 election. White House spokesman Josh Earnest said today only Russia's senior-most officials could have authorized these activities. So President Obama is expected to hold a news conference tomorrow before going on vacation. He's expected to be asked with questions about this, and I'm sure at that point he's going to either reassert what his press secretary said, or he's going to tack back towards something else. But the White House is officially involved. Now, I lend this. There's a lot more credence to this story now, to this accusation, because you have an administration putting their reputation, their name, and their access to the information. They're putting all of that on the line to say that this. Now, still, I want to see the evidence. I still want a third party to confirm this evidence. I know that's like wishful thinking, but that's still what I want, because I have no reason to trust the CIA. Like, what normal human being says, "Oh, I trust the CIA"? Just with a brief glance through American history, oh yeah, I instinctively trust the CIA. But it does lend a lot more credibility to the story that the Obama administration is willing to put their name, their reputation and his legacy. He's so worried about his legacy, they're going to put it on the line for this accusation. Okay, great. It has a little more. Now run with the story. Because the Obama administration has accused Vladimir Putin of this. And that's a story in and of itself. Whether it's true or not, it's still a huge story. It's still important. It's still significant, because the words of the president have, I don't even have to explain the ramifications of the words of the president to you. So even if it's not true and Obama is just saying this, that's like, I mean, that's a story for a lifetime, right? But all of these journalists who ran off the cuff with this story with unnamed sources, it shows you the lack of substance and the lack of consistency, because they would have called out Republicans for doing this. I mean, they would be saying the same exact thing I'm saying about them. They would be saying it about Republicans, had Republicans run with a story accusing Russia based on two unnamed sources. You got to be consistent, people. 857-600-0518. If you want to join in. Caller, you're live on the air. Thanks for your patience. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Hi, my name is Daniel.
How are you?
I just wanted to, good. How are you doing, Ben?
I'm doing well. Thanks for the call.
Great. Well, thanks for answering my call. I wanted to pick up on where you were talking about consistency with commentators and journalists. You know, I find that there seems to be a divide between going after domestic issues like Dylann Roof and police brutality, and how that we have journalists. I mean, I love Sean King and, you know, a lot of other commentators out there that have taken these domestic issues to the forefront with some really great commentary about how we see ourselves as Americans and the racial divide and all that. But there also seems to be an overwhelming pressure that somehow the Black community and the communities of color, the disadvantaged communities, while we can talk about our victimizations, somehow we don't have the strength to deal with issues of national, let's say international importance. And, you know, there's like a lot of objective reporting and commentary when it comes to these domestic issues, but the moment we get our minds into, let's say, technical analysis in IT. And we already know that the tech community is a very marginalizing industry, okay? How that Black and people of color have not had access to that industry. I mean, we're talking about federal contracts. We're talking about, bank loans to start a tech business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And these are really the industries and the expertise that our communities of color need to show that we have prowess in. I mean, most of the talking heads that have come up about this Russia business, they've been, sorry, but they've been mostly white tech people or commentators that seem to have some links to tech people. I actually haven't even seen many actual tech, professionals speak about these issues. And that's another thing, because why don't the Black community, these commentators, have access to call up, their tech friends? I know Howard University has excellent tech department. We have a lot of excellent Black universities around the country that have great tech departments. Why don't we call them up and ask them, what does this actually mean?
Yeah.
And show that we have this prowess. I find it highly suspicious that when it comes to the domestic issues, the police brutality, when we're victims, then
we're out front.
There's so much there's so much realism, and then all of that just flies out the window once it's about international issues. I mean, is this a stereotype or what? I really think it is.
Well, yeah, I think it's thanks for the call. That's an interesting perspective. Like it takes us into a totally different conversation, but I mean, it's worth a few moments of commentary. I think some of the problem, quite literally, is they're not comfortable talking about those things, right? I think it's quite literally like Sean King probably would not, and Sean is my boy, right? But he probably is not comfortable whatsoever talking about international affairs or international relations. I'm not comfortable talking about tech issues, other than I've got enough footing and grounding in tech issues to know that what probably could be done and at the pace that we could get it done in, right? So I think a lot of it has to do with people not having a comfort level in those areas, which means then we need other people to have space and platforms, other Black people to have space and platforms who are comfortable talking about the tech industry, who are talking about comfortable and connecting those issues to our community and getting opportunities. So from that perspective, I agree with you. I'm very comfortable talking about international relations, so much so that my audience disagrees with me so much. But I'm standing my ground on my issues in the international relations area, because that is my forte. That's actually, my thing. But all right, 857-600-0518 to join the conversation. I need to give an update on one particular quote. So the interview with and I'm going to lean on my editor, Owen, to connect this to the other clip. The interview with Julian Assange is actually a 30-minute interview. Buried inside of that 30 minutes is a line that I want to give a shout out to Tony Chev on Twitter, at Tony Chev, 2 V's. Thank you for giving this to me. There's a line in here where Julian actually says this, quote, "Now, who is behind these? We don't know. These look very much like they're from the Russians, but in some ways they look very amateur and almost look too much like the Russians." So he's still kind of leaving a back door for him to say could be the Russians, but it's really sloppy and it's an attempt to make it look like the Russians. And then again, it very well could have been someone from Russia and not ordered by the state. But the burden of evidence, the burden of proof is on our side at this point. We claim to have the evidence. So let's clear up all the questions. Let's clear up any misunderstanding and put the evidence on the table so we can find out for ourselves. All right. 857-600-0518. We have a couple other stories that we have to get through, and we're already pressed for time. I do want to take this caller, but let me hit a couple of other stories real quick, particularly what's happening with Donald Trump. Two particular things, key things happening with Donald Trump. One, he's got this weird, I don't want to play this card, but Ivanka Trump is going to be taking up some of the responsibilities of the first lady. I'm sure it's really because, like, I'm going to be fair first, and then I'll be a dick in a second. Right? I'm pretty sure it's because Melania Trump is staying in New York with whatever their son name is. What's it, Buster? Whatever his son's name is. They're going to stay there so that they can finish school. And then so I'm sure this is about there are some duties of the first lady that have to be fulfilled or traditionally should be fulfilled. That's what Ivanka is going to be doing. However, back to my asshole self, that's some creepy stuff when you consider the comments that Donald Trump has made about his daughter. Doesn't mean anything in the real world, but I just wanted to throw that out there. More importantly than all of that, all of the stuff that you will hear on TMZ, is the stuff that actually matters in the conversation. Number one, Donald Trump has picked 17 people so far who are going to be in his cabinet, and they have a wealth worth over $9.5 billion combined. 17 people worth $9.5 billion. They are going to be leading these departments. They're going to be leading our nation. They are going to be setting policies that one would think would promote the general welfare. But you would think wrong. He's putting people in there who are perfectly suited to make America even more corporatocracy, right? They're making it more of a corporate run and corporate owned state. Look at the tax cuts Donald Trump is getting ready to do. It's going to benefit these people more than anybody else. I think the average tax break for the top 1% is going to be around 14.1%, where anyone making under $30,000 a year, your average tax break is going to be like 0.7%. So Donald Trump has appointed 17 people with a net worth of over $9.5 billion and I believe that's worth, just to give you some comparison, right? Give you some comparisons. I saw one estimate that said that the $9.5 billion combined wealth is worth more than 1/3 of America. 17 people running the nation have more wealth than 1/3 of America. All right, let me break the numbers down a little bit better so you can have it. This is coming from an article from Forbes magazine. Boom, saw it there. So Forbes magazine wanted to put in a perspective that we could understand. They said Taylor Swift is worth $250 million. This cabinet of 17 people, they're worth 58 Taylor Swifts. Todd Ricketts, who is Donald Trump's pick for Deputy Commerce Secretary, he alone has an estimated net worth of $5.3 billion. And he's going to be put in the Commerce Department. Deputy Secretary. Do you think he's going to, I don't know, do things for the average man? Or do you think he's going to do things for his ilk? Betsy DeVos, the choice for Secretary of Education, she's worth $5.1 billion. Now, is it impossible for rich people to do good things for average people? No, it's not impossible whatsoever. Is it likely with this group, considering the tax breaks, considering the tone and the tenor that Donald Trump has already set, considering how we have been plundered in the past by billionaires, considering how they're taking what Ronald Reagan did and putting it on steroids? Do we actually believe these billionaires are going to be there to serve the average American? If you believe that, anyway, no need to finish that cliche. So here's the last thing from Forbes that was interesting. It said Dwight Eisenhower, he was the last president to be elected without ever serving in public office like Donald Trump. Donald Trump is no Eisenhower. But he installed a cabinet that was mockingly referred to as 9 millionaires and a plumber. Well, you know, we've not even one-upped. We've almost doubled. We've almost doubled the insanity. And I'm sure those figures, those people will be billionaires if you adjust for inflation. So anyway, these are the people who are leading the country. And I think we have yet to see exactly how much they are going to plunder the coffers and abdicate their responsibility to run and fund the government from which they derive their benefit and their wealth, right? This is the way I see tax policy. You should be paying into the government based on the percentage of what you derive from that government. That's what you should be paying in. And for them to be getting a 14% reduction in their taxes means they have a 14% reduction in their commitment and their responsibility to the federal government. While the rest of us poor, meager people, we get about a 0.7% to about a 2% reduction. I mean, put that in context. That's like living in a house with a millionaire. The millionaire's responsibilities, you're sharing the house, and you're a millionaire, they're a millionaire, you're making minimum wage, and the millionaire's responsibility to that household, to the bills in that house, reduces by 14%, and your responsibility reduces by only 0.7%. Somebody's going to get put the hell out. All right, what are we looking like on time? Perfect. We have a little time. Let's take this caller who's been so patient. Caller, you're live on the air. What is your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, Ben, it's Danny again. We were disconnected, but, I have a comment about what you were mentioning with Donald Trump administration. I really think that this is, the policies that Donald Trump has said he was going to do, or at least the culture that he was going to promote, that aren't in line with the way America sees itself moving forward. This is really an opportunity for us to concentrate on strengthening, I want to say the progressive base, but really there's a lot of people out there. I mean, people that voted for Obama that have voted for Trump. You know what I mean? It's like there must be still a base where there's the humanity. We need to reach out and strengthen that, and people need to work on that. How do we do that in this situation? Now, as far as the moneyed interests in the White House and Trump's administration, incoming administration, you can see how that he's insulating himself. And if Clinton had become president, then the Clinton Global Initiative, that this moneyed interest there, billionaires, and it's really a consortium of billionaires, So it's not like we had this. The only choice really this year was Bernie Sanders, as far as not having that culture continued.
For sure.
I mean, Trump, Clinton, it's the idea that you have to insulate yourself with money in order to protect yourself from, people who are challenging your administration. I mean, it becomes really serious. And there's rich people that have more freedom than a lot of presidents in the world. I mean, I was reading the other day how that we have people going around with so much wealth that they don't even need passports. I mean, imagine how they seriously.
Yeah, I guess their plane is just.
They routinely, they routinely go in and out of international airports with other people on board, and they don't even. No one checks their passports. They don't even need passports.
Yeah, that's some serious freedom there. Thanks for the call. I do want to make one pushback to what you said. There is a clear difference between Hillary Clinton's tax policy and Donald Trump's tax policy. That's where, like, will Hillary Clinton have done things to benefit the 1%? I'm sure she probably had plenty of plans to do so. Was she going to make a tax code that, completely eviscerates the idea of progressive taxation? No, her tax policy was totally different, night and day. Magnitudes of order different than Donald Trump's. It wasn't as progressive as Bernie Sanders. No, it wasn't. But it was certainly not what Donald Trump is doing. Donald Trump is literally, take a look at his tax policy. Like he's giving away and gutting the American government. And we all know who's going to pay for this, right? It's not going to be the military. The military is not going to pay for this. It's going to be every social safety net. It's going to be every program. It's going to be every department, every regulation, everything that we've set up to remotely protect the American economy, worker, and environment, all that's about to get gutted. All that's about to be gutted on day one with Donald Trump. But thanks again so much for the call. We only have a few moments here, and I know we have a lot of calls lined up. Let me take this caller real quick, and then we'll try to grab the last story of the day. Caller, do me a favor, turn down your internet, your radio, whatever you're listening on, and give me your name, comment, and or question. Okay, we lost the caller. All right. Last story of the day. There's a story that I want to pick up. Well, they're back. Caller, you're live, but I need you to cut off your radio or cut off your internet, whatever you're listening to us on, and give me your name, comment, and or question.
All right. My name is Tahuti Asara, and I'm just want to leave a comment. What you were saying earlier about this CIA, I have to touch on that, man. All I got to say is the Iran-Contra affair. With all the stuff that they did, with no one went to jail. No one went to jail for that.
Yeah.
You know, Oliver North never went to jail.
He's even got him a show.
Jail. Bush didn't go to jail.
Yeah.
Yes, on Fox News.
Yeah.
Then he tried to run for the Senate or Congress or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, so Iran-Contra pretty much destroyed their reputation. And don't forget that I forgot the name of that congresswoman from California. She said that the CIA tried to hack into her computer, and then after that,
Feinstein. Yeah.
The Senate tried to Dianne Feinstein. Dianne Feinstein led the charge to do away with the CIA, and they only came like a couple votes short of doing away with the CIA. They could have did it. What was it, 2015 or something like that?
Yeah, it was recent. It was pretty recent. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm all for it. I'm all for getting evidence, but and showing that Russia did persuade this election. If they did, then the Electoral College should just go ahead and vote for Clinton. Even though I don't like Clinton, they should just go ahead and vote for because they took advantage, and they had their constitutional right. The whole reason for the Electoral College is to protect the public from outside and
yeah.
To the
I mean,
public. That's why they have it.
That's hey, thanks for the call. I'm running short on time. Man, you're talking about a war on your hands. I just don't see how them putting Hillary Clinton in would result in anything good for America. Like them putting America, I see us having factions shortly after that happens. We'll have the conservative faction of the South or some form of, I just don't see that ending well whatsoever. So I'm not on board with them putting Hillary Clinton in. I don't think there's going to be a difference if they put in Kasich. Only thing there's going to be a difference on is your style and the way you like your politicians. But I just don't know. I can't imagine for the life of me how we would survive them putting Hillary Clinton in. Yeah, that would be bad for business. This is the last thing. I have two other stories, but if you want those two other stories, why don't you come to the bonus show on tomorrow? Go to patreon.com/the BPD show and chip in $3 a month. That's like the cost of a bottle of water, right? I don't drink anymore, so I'm not even asking for a scotch. But if you want to buy me a scotch, it's $10 a month. Anyway, last story of the night. Somebody put in a comment in Spreaker, the radio show, and they said, question, who says that the black community can't benefit from business favorable tax policies like other communities do? Talking about Donald Trump's tax policies. Well, history, the current position of the black community. Let's be sure. Capitalism works great if you got capital. Capitalism works great if you were born into capital. Capitalism works great if you don't have to work for your income. It works great for people who can make money off of money. But those of us who have to sell our labor in exchange for money, for wages, it doesn't really work well. And if you look at the black community, bring it down to the specific question, look at the black community, the majority of the black community overwhelmingly does not have businesses. And it's not that we don't have businesses because we're not creative. It's not that we don't have businesses because we're not innovative or entrepreneurial. We don't have businesses because we can't get fucking loans. We can't get capital. I mean, you can have the best ideas in the world and you're only going to go as far as, I could tie it in perfectly. Someone in the chat room says, why doesn't Ben Dixon Show have more than 99, why does he have more followers, more viewers when he's better than about 99% of the other commentators out there? Well, because this is a bootstrap operation, right? The first 2 years of this, I did this without, first year and a half, I did this without any help. I did this with the money I had left over after I paid childcare, And so when you are literally bootstrapping things for real, you have to fucking work 40 hours a week and then go and do your hustle on the side and then slowly but surely build that up. And then not only do you have to be able to work extra hard, you have to be extra talented and you have to get lucky just to get a little fucking break. This is the position of the majority, the overwhelming majority of the black community. This is also the position of a lot of white people, a lot of Hispanic people. It's across the board. So business tax breaks, they don't benefit our communities because we ain't got no businesses. And the reasons we don't have businesses is not because we're not innovative, creative, hardworking, simply because we don't have capital to actually start something and fund it and run it. I have worked, no, I don't want to say I've worked with because then I fuck it. I've already said it, so I got to finish it, right? I have worked for companies that have gone public and they started off without even an idea of what they were doing. But you know what they had? They had investors. They had people willing to put millions of dollars into them because they were like, you'll figure it out. Here's a round of funding that's like $10 million. Go figure out what you're going to build. And then they built it. While the rest of us, we're out here like we've got ideas, we got business plans, we're working at it, we're hustling, we're taking a little bit from our paycheck, putting it here and there. We can't get loaned the first. We can't get investors the first. And we're out here just hustling and grinding. So when people ask me like, well, won't these business tax breaks help the black community? Help us what? Get minimum wage jobs that they don't even want to raise to $15 an hour? It's going to help McDonald's come through and build a bigger McDonald's and automate and then replace everybody? I mean, fucking Uber's getting ready to replace us. No, it's not. It's not. You're going to get, okay, yeah, unemployment's going to go down. Not the medium income of African Americans is not going to go up. So, I mean, I'm not saying this directly to the person who asked the question. Thank you for asking the question to give me a chance to rant on something. But the point is this. Capitalism works great if you got capital. If you don't have capital, capitalism will rape you every single day of the week. It's probably not the best word to use, but hell, I done said fuck like 10 times, so rape is probably the least of my worries. See you guys later.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. It's Ben Dixon! If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.